We are live. Hey, how is it going? Lee Hayward here with the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Live video Q&A for Friday, Good Friday, April 15th. Hopefully you're having a good one. I certainly am. And the way these video chats work is I'm going to be hanging out here for the next hour or so. Basically what it is, I got myself a cup of tea. Right, tea with Lee video chat here. So as soon as my tea is over, as soon as my tea is gone, the video chat's over. So this is like my timer, right? So having a sip of tea. When the tea is gone, the chat's over. It usually takes about an hour, right? The tea is cold by the end of then. And what I'll be doing is basically just having a chat with you and answering some questions that you may have with regards to fitness and nutrition. So again, it is a fitness and nutrition Q&A. So anything that you would like to discuss with regards to your workouts, with regards to your nutrition, any specific challenges you're dealing with when it comes to building muscle or losing fat, feel free to type in those questions and topics of discussion into our chat window, and I'll do the best that I can to help you out during our video chat today. And if I can help you, I will. And if I can't, then I will try my best to point you in the right direction to somebody who can. Because even though I've been doing this a long time, like I've been involved with the whole fitness industry now for over 30 years, I don't claim to know it all, right? And if I don't know something or I don't feel like I'm the right fit to help you, then I'll try my best to point you in the right direction to somebody who can. So let's see, who do we have joining in? We've got Dan, we've got Andrew, we've got Lee. Welcome, gentlemen. And I should do this. I always should do this. Is the audio and video coming through clear? Like, can you hear me? Can you see me? If it's loud and clear, type a loud and clear into the video chat there and let me know. We got John joining in. We have Talentless Medic. Dan saying loud and clear. Baby Booner Fitness. Andrew saying loud and clear. We have Lux joining in. Loud and clear, loud and clear. Good stuff. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good. Awesome. So feel free to type in anything that you want to discuss into the chat window. And again, I'll be taking these questions on a first come, first served basis. I actually had one that was sent in earlier from Andrew, and I'm just going to bring that up because he sent me a message earlier in advance. And that's something you can do if you want to make sure that your question gets answered or addressed. Feel free to send it to me in advance. And Andrew and I were friends on Facebook, and if you want to stay in touch with me, that's the easiest way to keep in touch with me is through Facebook, because I use that quite frequently. So friend me up over on Facebook and you can send me a message, and that's just what Andrew did. So just give me a second. Now I'm going to bring up Andrew's message there from Facebook. Where was it? All right, so I'm just going to read it out and then address it. Here we go. Just a second, guys. I'm just move some things around on my computer here. Hopefully it's all working good on your end. Good stuff. All right. So Andrew wrote me just literally about an hour ago saying, he says, Lee, I've suffered with an eating disorder for over a year. I've drastically cut my calories way too low, and I've recently started to up them by about 500 calories a day and feel much better. Well, that's good. He says, but I still don't know if I'm under eating for me. I might be too low of a body fat to gain muscle. Sometimes I still have low energy, poor sleep. Not sure if I should up my calories even more. I've gained 7 pounds, but I still think I should be bigger. All right. That's a loaded question because there's a lot of stuff to unpack there. I mean, obviously an eating disorder, you know, there's a lot of things we can unpack with that. Now, based on the information you shared, it's an eating disorder where you were drastically under eating. So I'm assuming you were trying to lose weight or cut fat or whatever, and you went into a very low calorie phase for a while. One thing that I would focus on here is learning to listen to your body. And this is a challenge to listen to your body because a lot of times we don't intuitively know what our body is telling us, but you have to kind of learn to listen to your body and get in tune with your hunger and fullness signals and know when you need to eat and when you don't need to eat. So one thing that, like, if you're going to be active, if you're going to be working out or you're going to be doing a lot of physical activity, you need to fuel for that activity. And a common mistake that a lot of bodybuilders do is they're always in the depletion type of phase. Like they're thinking, well, I need to cut and I want to train in a fasted state so I maximize fat burning. And yes, that is true to a certain extent, but it's not optimal. I mean, if you want to maximize your muscle gains, you want to maximize your athletic performance, you don't want to be running on empty, right? Like athletes in other sports, they fuel their training, right? They fuel up for the workout so they have some energy to run on. Bodybuilding is a weird sport in that a lot of times people are always in this depletion phase, like thinking, oh, I got to diet down, I got to cut and restrict and try and burn off as much body fat as possible to get ridiculously shredded. And yeah, that does work. I mean, as far as getting ridiculously shredded, and if that is your goal, to compete in a bodybuilding show or a photo shoot or something where you need to be super lean, then that's sometimes what's required to get there. But from a regular normal person point of view, from an athletic performance point of view, from a health and fitness point of view, and from an energy and health and wellness point of view, you don't want to starve yourself. Starving yourself is not the ideal solution. I like to steal a line from Tom Venuto, who wrote the book, Burn the Fat, Feed the Muscle. And I love that line. Like that was the title of his book. And that philosophy is perfect for what we want to focus on. You want to burn the fat through exercise, and you want to feed the muscle through proper nutrition. Stop thinking of burning the fat and starving the fat at the same time, because that just leads to a negative spiral downwards. I mean, it's not sustainable long term. So in your case, Andrew, I would definitely focus on increasing your calorie intake and doing so that you're not feeling hungry, for one. I mean, you want to be comfortably full, and make sure that you're filling up on nutrient-dense foods, high-quality nutrient-dense foods. Because I don't want you to make the mistake of thinking, well, I'm just going to start loading up on, empty calorie junk foods. Because a lot of times we have this all or nothing, extreme approach where it's, hey, I'm going to starve myself or I'm going to stuff myself. Like you want to get out of these extremes of one side or the other and focus on this happy medium, this happy balance in between. So you want to fuel yourself with natural unprocessed foods. So a few tips to look for is make sure that every meal has a good serving of complete protein, right? Lean protein with every meal. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, protein with every meal. You want to have some fruits and vegetables with every meal, right? Or vegetables and or fruit. Like I would recommend vegetables most of the time, but you can have fruit in there as well. Protein and vegetables with every meal is kind of like my non-negotiable habit. That's what I personally focus on, right? When I sit down to a meal, I always want to make sure protein and veggies or protein and fruit, because sometimes it's not always practical to have vegetables. Like for example, like breakfast, sometimes it's easier to have some fruit instead of having vegetables. Sometimes for snacks, it's easier to grab a piece of fruit because it's so quick and convenient. Like grab an apple or a banana or an orange or something like that and have that for a quick snack. But for my main meals, I always have solid food protein, solid food vegetables. And if I can't get solid food protein or solid food vegetables, then I'll have supplemental protein and supplemental vegetables. So you always want to have protein and vegetables as the foundation, because that's the stuff that's going to nourish your body on the cellular level and help to build muscle, right? It's going to help to build your metabolism, aid with muscle growth, aid with your overall health and fitness. So fill up on that. And you also want to fuel your body with adequate amounts of carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates are kind of like a wild card, meaning that you can adjust the amount of carbohydrates based on your activity levels. So if you're really active, eat more carbohydrates, fuel the machine. If you're not so active, then you can eat less carbohydrates. But in your case, where you're coming from an eating disorder and you want to build muscle, I wouldn't recommend a low carb diet. At the very least, 1/3 of your calories from protein, 1/3 of your calories from fat, 1/3 of your calories from carbs. Like start with that as a foundation and making sure that you're in a slight calorie surplus. And then from there, you can manipulate the carbohydrates based on your activity level. So if you're really active, like you're working out or you're doing cardio or you're playing sports or going on a weekend hiking adventure or whatever, like you're doing extra activity over and above your norm, then fuel that activity with more carbohydrates. On the days that you're taking it easy, whether it's a rest day or a chill day or a whatever, it's a relaxation day, then you can scale back the carbohydrates because you won't be needing them as much because you're not burning as many calories and you're not as active. But the protein and veggies, that should stay stable. You want to keep that high all the time because that's a nutrient-dense food that's going to nourish your body on the cellular level and make sure that you're not neglecting anything that your body needs. So that's a good general guideline to follow. But again, if you want some personalized help with this, coming up with a customized meal plan or whatever for you, feel free to reach out to me. Let me know. I mean, we can schedule in for a strategy session call and we can really sit down and discuss your situation, kind of like do a fitness and nutrition audit of what you're currently doing and see if we can come up with some action steps to help optimize that. So if that's something you're interested in, reach out to me. And or you can head on over to my website, leehayward.com, and up in the top link there's a tab there for coaching. You can literally book in for a free strategy session call and we can have a chat and brainstorm an action plan for you. All right, moving on. We have, who else we got there? Lee Dunnigan's joining in. John is joining in. John is asking, does estrogen increase muscle mass from carbs? All right, that's an interesting one. First off, does estrogen increase muscle mass? In a degree, it actually can. Now, I'm not saying that you try and go out there and purposely, increase your estrogen, because generally speaking, as guys, we want to minimize excess estrogen, but it can be taken to the extreme. And I'm going to use competitive bodybuilders as an example. Now, for most of us listening to this, what I'm about to say does not apply. But for people who are pushing the limits and they're taking performance enhancing drugs and things that are, synthetic hormones or manipulating their hormones, synthetically, this can certainly play a role. Because one of the things that sometimes you'll see competitive bodybuilders do is they will take anti-estrogen medication to basically block or reduce estrogen levels in the body. And yes, that can help to minimize water retention. It can help to aid with fat burning and all that kind of stuff. But it also can limit your gains, because when you have little to no estrogen in your body, one, you're more susceptible to injury. I mean, estrogen does play a role. It can help to keep your joints and tendons and ligaments healthy. I mean, it does play a role in the body, but you need it in the right amounts, right? You don't want too much or too little, like this all or nothing extreme. Like, we want that happy balance where it needs to be in the optimal range, not the extreme range. So when people block their estrogen levels, it can cause a lot of joint pain. It increases risk of injury, and it can actually literally limit your muscle gains. So if you have too little estrogen, and usually the only way someone's going to have too little estrogen is if they're taking some sort of synthetic estrogen blocker, right? Some sort of medication to block the estrogen, an anti-estrogen drug, so to speak. That's the only way that you're really getting to that range, unless, of course, you have some genetic hormone disorder that would need to be discussed with a doctor. But most guys are not going to get into that. Most guys are going to have the opposite problem. Too much estrogen. And it usually comes about from eating processed foods, drinking alcohol, recreational drugs, just having too much body fat. I mean, that can cause excess estrogen to build up in the body. And then that causes the opposite, right? Where you're soft and you're puffy and you're fat, and it hinders fat burning. And you don't want that either. I mean, you can get the man boobs and all the negative side effects from that side. So most guys are going to be too much estrogen, especially if you're overweight and out of shape and you're not taking care of yourself. But in the extreme cases, sometimes it can be too little estrogen as well. So you want that happy medium, that happy balance. And for the most part, living a healthy, active lifestyle, like eating natural, unprocessed foods in the right amounts, weight training, cardio, getting adequate sleep, and living a healthy, active lifestyle, like that will help to keep everything in balance and check. But if you do have any issues when it comes to hormones, I mean, and you need some help with it, then obviously talk to your doctor about it, right? If there are some weird, wacky hormone things going on within your body, right? Get it checked out by a doctor and see what needs to be done. Now, as far as estrogen and carbs, no, estrogen and carbohydrates it's not going to have any big connection. Like, estrogen is not going to be raised because you're eating carbohydrates, or decline because you're eating carbohydrates, or no. I mean, maybe you can elaborate on your question, because I really don't. It's kind of vague, and if you want to elaborate on it more, and maybe I can give you a better answer, feel free to elaborate it in the comments below. But for now, I'm just going to say no. Estrogen is not going to increase because you eat carbohydrates. Or anyway, moving on. I'm getting confused. We have, who else we got there? Talentless Medic is joining us. Andrew's joining in. Andrew already addressed his question earlier. JKS 50. What are your thoughts on circuit training? One set of each exercise, brief rest, repeat 3 to 4 times. I love it. I often do circuit training in my workouts, and it's just another way to change things up. And circuit training is nice when you're one, you can do a circuit. So, like if you're at a home gym or you're at a commercial gym and it's not that busy and you can hog multiple pieces of equipment at the same time, that's cool. You can do a circuit routine where you do a set of this exercise, a set of that exercise, and just kind of go through it, in a order of that fashion. I very often do that myself. I've done a lot of workouts in a circuit fashion, and I enjoy the variety and I enjoy the training tempo, because generally with a circuit routine, you can train at a faster pace than if you're doing straight sets. So from an overall muscular endurance conditioning type of training, it's really good. Because, for example, like let's just say you do a set of an upper body exercise, like a set of bench presses, and then instead of just doing another set of bench presses afterwards, now you can go over and do a set of rows. So your circuit, you're alternating different muscle groups. While your chest is working, your back is resting. Vice versa, while your back is working, your chest is resting. So you can kind of give your body parts a little break when you're alternating the exercises in the circuit, and still keep the tempo a bit faster than you normally would. So it's great for condensing a lot of exercise volume into a shorter period of time. So I'm a big fan of that, and it's just fun. It's just a nice way to change it up. Now, with that being said, there's times when I will do straight sets as well. Like from a strength and power point of view, I think doing straight sets is more advantageous. But from a conditioning point of view, and time savings point of view, I think a circuit training could be more advantageous. But again, it's not like one is right, wrong, good, or bad, or anything like that. It's just another way to train, another tool in the toolbox, if you will. So, I mean, you can utilize it when you see fit. But yeah, I'm a big fan of circuit training. And in fact, for a lot of my workouts, I do incorporate circuit style workouts. Dario's joining in. How do you keep prolonged cardio from interfering with your leg workouts? It's depending on what it is you're doing and how hard you're doing it and how long you're doing it. It's going to interfere with your leg workouts. Like you're not going to go, ride a century and then do a leg day the next day. Like it ain't going to happen. And for those of you who don't know what that is, ride a century is a 100-mile ride. That's right. I mean, like if you do a high intensity or long duration cardio session, your legs are going to be fatigued, right? So you're not going to be able to just pair that up with the strength training leg workout right afterwards, or vice versa. You're not going to be able to go in there and hammer out a heavy leg workout and then go and have an optimal, cardio session. There's going to be some interference there. Now, depending on your goal and what it is you're focusing on, this is how you can prioritize it. If your main goal is prioritizing cardio, then that's what you want to do. And you want to space out those workouts so that your strength training is not hindering your cardio. And ideally, you want to space it out so there's several days apart. Or at least space it out so that the high intensity workouts are spaced apart. Like if you did an easy low intensity cardio session and then did a leg workout the next day, or did a leg workout and then an easy low intensity cardio session, if you do those back to back, it's not a big deal, right? But if you're doing high intensity cardio where you're pushing limits, and then high intensity leg training where you're trying to max out with heavy weight, that's going to have an impact. So you have to have that compromise. And I'm in this situation myself because right now I'm prioritizing a lot of cycling in my training. And this is something that I'm working on. Like in a month's time, I'm actually going to be competing in a provincial road race right now. Now, I know I don't have a snowball's chance in hell of winning, but I'm doing it for a personal goal, right? I mean, it's something that I want to work towards, and it's just a personal goal to focus on. So in a month's time, I'm going to be competing in a provincial road race. So I've been doing a lot more cycling training. And right now I'm averaging, I think when I checked my stats, they're 280 kilometers a week is what I'm averaging right now on the bike. So, I mean, that's a fair bit of cardio by, average person standards. Now, I mean, by professional cyclist standards, that would probably be an easy active recovery day. But for me, that's pushing it. So I have to structure my leg workouts in there and do so in a strategic fashion. So usually what I do is I'll space out the strength training and I also tend to do shorter, more frequent strength training workouts so that I don't get that delayed onset muscle soreness. but you have to find the compromise in there somewhere, right? So if you want some specific help with that, feel free to reach out to me, like send me an email or message me on Facebook, and we can chat like what it is that you're trying to achieve, like with regards to your cardio, with regards to your leg training, and with regards to your overall workouts in general, and see if we can come up with a compromise. But there's no magic answer to say, hey, do this, drink this, pop this pill, and you'll be able to hammer out high intensity cardio and high intensity legs all in the same day. It ain't going to happen. All right, moving on. We have Lux joining in. He says, I'm doing exactly like JKS50. I second his question. Okay, well, I'm. And Jake, okay. He was doing circuit training. Okay, gotcha. So hopefully that was your question about the circuit training. We have the FAQ, the FAQ. Says, I go to the gym every day. Did I miss something? Or, I'm not sure if that's a question, a statement, or what. All right, I just get that one. It just says, I go to the gym every day. Cool. I usually work out every day myself, but the way I structure my workouts is I'm usually alternating weight training one day and cardio the next. So this is a good rule of thumb. Like, try not to pair up two high intensity sessions together. Like if you go all out with heavy weight training, you wouldn't want to go all out with heavy weight training like multiple days in a row, or at least you want to structure it in such a way that you can get the recovery in there. I personally find I function and recover the best when I do high intensity weight training and then cardio. Weight training, cardio, and alternate it in that fashion. I find that when I do that, it allows the body to recover better. That's generally what I do. Now, I'll be honest, right now in the current training that I'm doing more cardio than that. I'm tipping the scale in favor of more cardio, but you can still exercise every day as long as you structure it in the right way to allow adequate recovery. All right, Baby Boomer Fitness. Could you explain calories in, calories out? It just seems like I can't lose the pounds eating carbs. And thanks for helping. All right. Calories in, calories out. It seems I can't lose the pounds eating carbs. All right. One, if you eat a low carb diet, you're going to lose weight very quickly. And it's not necessarily that you're losing body fat very quickly. It's you're depleting water very quickly. And this is where it can be misleading and confusing, because for every gram of carbohydrate that gets stored in the muscle, i.e. stored glycogen, for every gram of stored glycogen, your body will retain 3 to 4 grams of water. So if you deplete your glycogen, i.e. deplete your carbohydrates, not only are you losing the glycogen that's in the muscle, but all that water that's being pulled into the muscles along with that glycogen. So the weight on the scale can drop very quickly. I mean, it's not uncommon for people to go on a low carb diet and lose 10 pounds in the first week. Now, obviously, they didn't lose 10 pounds of body fat. I mean, the numbers just wouldn't work out that way, because a pound of body fat is 3,500 calories. Like, you're not creating that big of a calorie deficit just from cutting your carbs. I mean, it's just, you're not doing it. So the weight is coming from water. So that's why when you go on a low carb diet, the weight drops, and you say, oh my God. And this is where people get sucked into the whole low carb diet trend, is because they see that rapid drop and it gets them excited because they get that little bit of instant gratification. Hey, I just cut my carbs. I'm lighter on the scale. Wow, this must be working. But what's happening is you're actually depleting the glycogen out of your muscles. So now your muscles are flatter. Your muscles are weaker. You don't have that high octane fuel, because carbohydrates are your high octane fuel. That's the stuff that gives you the oomph when you're in the gym. Like if you're doing high intensity weight training or high intensity cardio, you're pushing your body to the limits, you're not burning body fat. Fat is the low octane fuel. That's the slow burning, trudge along fuel. That's not high octane. Carbohydrates are your high octane, high energy fuel source. So if you cut your carbohydrates, your energy levels plummet, and you're very often your muscles feel flat, and then you can't get a good pump when you train, and you very often feel weaker. And I mean, that just creates a whole slew of problems there, because I mean, if you can't push yourself as hard in the gym, then you're not going to be burning as many calories and optimizing your fitness performance that way. So I always recommend shooting for a balance, right? A balance of calories from protein, carbohydrates, and fat, so that you don't get into this depletion phase. right? That's a general rule of thumb where I recommend most people start. 1/3 calories from protein, 1/3 from fat, 1/3 from carbohydrates. And that's a good benchmark for most people. Now, again, you can manipulate it based on how your body responds in real time, but that's a good starting point. And then what you want to focus on is being in a very slight deficit so that you slowly lose weight. Like if you're weighing yourself every day and you can see the weight drop every day, you're losing weight too fast. It's not sustainable. In fact, if you're doing it properly, it should be very slow and almost so slow that you don't even notice it. And what I mean by that is like you weigh yourself today and you're 200 pounds. I'm just going to say, let's just say your goal is you're 200 pounds and you want to get down to 190, right? Just to keep it simple. So you jump on the scale today and you're 200 pounds, right? You jump on the scale tomorrow, you're still 200 pounds, still 200 pounds. And then, maybe, a week later, then you're 199, right? That's progress. Now, in reality, your weight's going to fluctuate up and down. It's probably going to be, 200 pounds one day, 201 the next, 198 the next, 201 the following day, 200 on the dot. Like it will fluctuate up and down because our weight will vary depending on the water and food and all that in our system. So it's never static, but what you want to do is just see a very slow trend. And ideally, if you're losing like 1 pound a week is really good progress. And it doesn't even have to be that much. In fact, I just had a coaching call with one of my students today who's making an amazing transformation. He's building muscle and losing body fat at the same time, and he's increasing his strength and energy. So, I mean, he's feeling good and he's not feeling deprived or hungry in the process, which is awesome. But over the last 6 months, he's only averaged a 3 pound per month weight loss. So if you average it out, 3 pounds a month is what he's been losing. Now, by most people's standards, if they were only losing 3 pounds a month, they'd see, oh my God, I'm a failure. This diet crap, this isn't working, blah, blah, blah. And they give up in frustration. But that's how sustainable fat loss works, is it's slow, steady progress. Because just imagine if you did lose 3 pounds a month, right? Well, let's even keep it simple. Let's just say you even lost 2 pounds a month. I mean, most people would consider themselves a massive failure if they lost 2 pounds a month. But what if you did that month after month after month and you kept it up for a couple of years? Like, I mean, you could be at your ideal body weight and enjoy the process without feeling deprivation. Whereas if you went on the crash diet approach, yeah, you'd lose the weight so much quicker. But once you get fed up with feeling hungry and deprived all the time, then you're going to end up binge eating and going back to your old eating habits and regain all the weight back. That's why we see so many people, they'll go on an extreme low carb keto cutting diet and they'll drop 30 pounds. And then you see them 6 months or a year later and they got 40 pounds back on. Like, it's not how fast can you lose it in the short term. It's like how long can you keep it off over the long term, right? We want the fat that you lose to be the fat loss that you keep, right? Not just this starve yourself, rebound, binge, eat, yo-yo weight gain up and down. Like, you need to think bigger. Like, where do you want to be in a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now? Like, that's where you need to be thinking. Not like, hey, I can't lose weight this week, or I can't lose weight this month. Like, forget this week, forget this month, and think like this time next year, this time in 3 years, this time 5 years, 10 years. Like, if somebody's following healthy habits and they're making slow, steady progress over the course of 10 years versus someone who's following unhealthy habits and they're eating like crap and they're slowly getting fatter over the course of 10 years, like, that's when it becomes this night and day, like, holy shit transformation. Like, what the hell is this healthy guy doing that the fat guy's not? It's not that he's doing anything crazy. It's just that he's good enough, but good enough consistently over the long term. And that's where this makes such a big life-changing transformation. And a lot of people think it has to be some extreme short-term approach, and it's not. It's that good enough, but good enough consistently. It's just plugging away day after day, with the basics and having a system in place where you actually enjoy the process so that you can stick with it over the long term. Because the problem with the extreme cutting diets, like, yeah, I mean, if I say, okay, you cut your carbs to 30 grams a day, I want you to do 2 hours of cardio a day, plus weight training, whatever, boiled chicken and broccoli, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, of course, anybody could lose weight if they did 2 hours of cardio, boiled chicken and broccoli, plus weight training. But like, how long are you going to stick that out for before you finally say, I can't do this anymore. Enough's enough. I feel like shit. I just want to go back to my normal eating habits again, right? You can only suffer it out so long before you have your wits end and you give in. So you have to have a system in place where you actually enjoy the process. And having a well-balanced diet where you have adequate carbohydrates, adequate fat, and adequate protein, right, in the right ratios, that's sustainable. It's enjoyable. You don't go through the ups and downs and the mood swings and feeling like you're depleted all the time. So you need to build the muscle, right? Fuel it, feed it with good quality nutrition, and then allow the, burn the fat through exercise. And it's not this starve it off. So it's a different approach altogether. And you want to think slow, steady fat loss. So, like, even if you're losing a half a pound of fat per week, that's progress. I mean, I know that's kind of hard to monitor and measure, so you might need to stretch it out. But again, going back to the conversation that I had today, it was Mike, a fellow I had a conversation with. He's been losing 3 pounds a month over the last 6 months. Now, it's starting to compound where it's noticeable now, and people are starting to take notice and say, like, wow, okay, you've lost weight, you look better. And in addition to losing the 3 pounds a month, he's also gained muscle and improved his fitness along with it. So he's achieving a body recomposition in the process. I mean, it's only been 6 months. Like, a lot of people think 6 months is like a long time. It's not. Like, 6 months is like a blink of an eye. It'll be here and gone before you know it. But I mean, if you make slow, steady progress over the course of 6 months or a year or even 3 to 5 years, like, then you could be at that stage, in a couple of years' time, happy with the results and being able to sustain it. Or you could keep doing the same shit that you're doing and struggling and feeling frustrated, going through the whole yo-yo diet and saying, oh, I tried that diet and exercise crap and it doesn't work, right? Like, it's a different mindset. It really is. Again, if you want some help and come up with a strategy, feel free to reach out to me. And that applies to anybody, like not just the guys who I'm answering the questions. For anybody watching this, I mean, if you want to discuss this in detail, feel free to reach out to me and we can have a chat. Samuel Jones says, Lee, help me stop yo-yo dieting. Good stuff. Appreciate it. Thanks for sharing. Andrew saying, thanks for answering my question. Really nice of you to do these live chats. You're welcome. Glad that you benefit from them. What else we got there? John saying thanks as well. You're welcome, John. AA saying, I've been doing 1 meal a day for 2 years. I lost 20 kilograms. Currently, I'm on a 1,600 calorie a day diet, but I can't seem to get thin skin. Any advice? Well, without knowing specifically what it is, if you've lost 20 kilograms, I mean, that's huge. But depending on how much body fat you have and how lean you want to get, you probably still have more to lose, right? Like, when you look at a professional bodybuilder or a fitness model or someone who's at the top of their game, I mean, a lot of times, like, first off, they're probably genetically gifted to be lean to begin with. That's a lot of times. But even if they're not, for those that go through that process and actually get there, like, you'd be amazed at how much weight they actually lose. Like, a lot of times people overestimate how much muscle they have and underestimate how much body fat they have. And they think, well, hey, if I lose 20 pounds or whatever, I'll be shredded. And then they lose 20 pounds and they're just a smaller version of them old selves. Like, okay, yeah, you're a bit leaner and you look and feel better, but you're still nowhere near ripped. Like, sometimes you have to lose a lot of weight. And if you've lost 20 kilograms, which is 44 pounds for those of you in standard system. I mean, that's a lot of weight, but you may have another 10 or 20 pounds to go. Who knows? Like, I don't know without seeing you and without analyzing your physique. But if you don't have lean defined muscle definition, like if you can't look and see the outline of your abs and all, the cuts and separation in your muscles yet, you still got more fat to lose. So you still need to keep on dieting. Now, the thing is, 1 meal a day, 1,600 calories a day. I mean, I commend you, tip my hat to you for doing it, but like, is that something you can do forever? Is that something you can do as a lifestyle? I mean, if it is, more power to you, but I know for most of us, that's not sustainable. That's the extreme all or nothing approach. And I think you'd need to find a more well-balanced approach to be able to sustain this for the long term, right? Like, I'm talking like as a lifestyle. So this is something, I mean, that's just kind of a side topic of your question there, but when it comes to fitness and nutrition, if you can't sustain and enjoy the process and it's only some short-term thing that you're suffering through, like a lot of people say, I'm going to go on a diet and I'm going to lose whatever, if your diet has a start and an end date, and it's something that you know is only temporary, like you're going to suffer it out on a diet, and then once you hit your goal, then you're going to ease off. Well, your results are only temporary, because as soon as you ease off, then you're going to go back to your old self. Right? You need to have new habits and make this a permanent change, and not just another diet. And that's been a game changer for me, because I'm coming from the bodybuilding background where it was always this all or nothing extreme approach. It was never this sustainable approach. And that's why, in my case, like I used to diet down and get in shape for competition and compete, look good for the contest. But as soon as the contest was over, then I rebound and start binge eating and go back to my old eating habits, gain all the weight back again, yo-yo diet. And it was always this up and down, up and down. And I'd always try and justify when I was getting fat by telling everybody, well, I'm bulking up now because it's the off season, which was really just a crock of shit, because it was an excuse for me to just let myself get fat because I couldn't stand starving myself all the time. But it was always this, it was an eating disorder, for lack of a better word. It is. I mean, you're either starving or stuffing, right? There's no in between, and you got to master that in between. Like that healthy balance, right, is where sustainability is at. And for some reason, I don't know why it is, but in the fitness industry, we always have these extreme approaches where, like, you can't do something sustainable and manageable and maintainable. No, it has to be like hardcore, right? I'm going slash my calories to, ridiculous starvation levels. I'm only going to eat one meal a day. I'm going to go all in. Like, you just had to be a little better than you were before. That's it. Like 1% better. Marginal gains, but let those marginal gains compound. And if you do that, then it's sustainable. But if you take I'm going to dive in the deep end, sink or swim approach, chances are you're going to sink. All right. Like it's very few people take the all or nothing approach and get it all. Usually they take the all or nothing approach and end up with nothing, right? Over the long term, that is. So anyway, if bottom line, to specifically get to your question, you lost weight. That's awesome. But if you're still not as lean as you want to be, it means you still got more weight to lose. What else we got there? AT. So we had AA. Now we have AT, right? Okay, AT. Due to Ramadan and not being able to drink water, I stopped taking creatine. I'm noticing that I cannot lift the way I used to. Do you recommend deloading, more rest days, go for cardio? All right, I addressed this during last week's video chat, because I'm not sure if it was yourself or someone else asked a question about Ramadan. I've never dealt with Ramadan, right? I've never went through it before. So, I mean, I'm only speaking from theoretical experience, right? I've never ever went on a fast where I had to restrict fluid. I've done fasting before just as a personal experiment, but I've never restricted fluid. There's always been a water fast where I was able to keep myself hydrated and consume electrolytes and all that kind of stuff. So I've never done a fast where I've never consumed liquids. Now, that is going to hinder your progress more than food. Like, you can go without food, and because I mean, obviously you got stored glycogen in your body and everything else, and you can probably get by with that. But going without fluid, that's going to have an impact, because once you're dehydrated, your fitness levels just, right? Like, muscle is 75% water. So once it's dehydrated, your ability to train and work hard and keep your muscles full, like everything just, it's a big hindrance, if you will. Now, I know you're going through it for religious reasons. So what my advice to you is literally to go through the motions with your fitness. Like, use the month of Ramadan for what it is, right? This is, let this be your spiritual retreat, your reset, your whatever. And then also let your fitness be put your fitness on the back burner as well, right? Because I mean, you can't push yourself hard. Like, I wish there was some strategy. If you drink this combination of liquids and eat this combination of foods in your feeding window, then that's going to offset all the negatives. And no, this is a question I get every year, and I've been getting it every year since I've been online since 1997. And people ask me it every year, even though I've never ever done it. But bottom line, there's no way around this. Like, if you're not eating optimally, you're not fueling optimally, you're not drinking optimally, you're not going to have optimal exercise performance, right? There's no way around it. I wish there was, but there's not. So in my advice to you is just to deload, like literally, like, go through the motions with your workouts. Do easy workouts, easy cardio, easy everything, until you're able to fuel your body properly. And in the short term, yeah, you're going to lose some strength. Yeah, you're going to lose some fitness and everything else. And it's not going to be optimal, but you can regain previous levels of fitness so much faster the second time around. So, like, let's just say it took you a year to build up to your current fitness level. It ain't going to take you a year to regain it after Ramadan. Like, you're taking a month of going easy. Within a month of normal eating and training in, you'll be back to your old self and then making progress from there on. So, like, it's only a little bump in the road in the greater scheme of things. I wouldn't overthink it. Just, embrace the experience for what it is, and then restart, after the month of fasting's over. All right. And John is saying, Happy Easter. Thank you, my friend. Much appreciated. Is muscle memory a thing? Yes, it is. And this actually goes, I can kind of tie this into the question about what AT was asking about. Muscle memory is a real thing. So when you build muscle the first time, it could take you a long time to get to that level of fitness or that level of strength. So, like, just take a beginner, never lifted weights before. I mean, they've got this big learning curve. There's this big growth curve that they got to go through, because one, they have to learn how to lift weights, learn how to contract the muscles, learn how to get that mind muscle connection and all that. And then while they're training, the body has to go through the whole process of building all that muscle and connective tissue and everything else. And it's a big undertaking. It's a big transformation taking place. But once you lay the foundation and you've built the body, you've had the muscle in place, then if you took some time off and you deconditioned and you lost a bit of size and strength in the process, you could regain it back again so much quicker the second time around. So, like, just say it took you, 5 years to build up to a certain level of strength and fitness, and then you ended up taking a year off, right? For whatever reason, whether you just got lazy or you got sick or there was a COVID lockdown and you couldn't go to the gym or whatever, right? For some reason, you took a year off. It wouldn't take you 5 years to get back to your previous level. Like, literally, probably within the matter of a few months, you could be close to your previous level of fitness again, and then making progress from there on. So yeah, you can regain lost muscle and lost fitness a lot quicker the second time around than it took you to gain it initially. And it is a legitimate thing. And this is something that you got to watch out for when it comes to before and after transformations. And I'll be totally transparent. My before and after transformation is a product of muscle memory as well. So if you see someone who was in great shape and then got out of shape and then got in really good shape again, it's a lot easier to do that because they're basically rebuilding lost muscle. They're regaining what they already had, and you can regain what you already had a lot quicker than someone who's trying to gain it for the first time. So anytime you see these before and after transformations that look too good to be true, take that into consideration, kind of do your homework and say, okay, well, if that person was in great shape and they just had a little layoff and they deconditioned and then they got in great shape again, yes, it's still impressive. Don't get me wrong. But it's not realistic to think that someone who's brand new can make that kind of progress, because they can't, because they don't have that foundation and that muscle memory. But yes, it is absolutely a real thing. Okay, John is saying, what if the scale goes down in weight, but stomach is fatter? I think scales don't tell the whole truth. All right. Okay. If you really did lose weight and you really did gain fat, meaning like you tested your body fat percentage and it was actually higher and you're losing weight, something's wrong, right? Something's not going right. Now, in the short term, if you're just kind of going by feel and by how you look in the mirror and all that kind of stuff, if the scale's going down, generally speaking, you're getting leaner. Again, unless you're doing something crazy or you're sick or there's something drastically wrong. But for the most part, if the weight is going down and you're exercising and eating properly and doing, the right things most of the time, you should be moving in the right direction. But sometimes what can happen is if you feel bloated, maybe you're eating more vegetables, for example. Like this is a common thing that happens a lot of times. Like if people change their eating habits for a fat loss program, and now all of a sudden they're eating more vegetables and they're eating some different foods, they could actually lose weight. But if you get gassy sometimes as your body's adjusting to that vegetable intake, and sometimes the higher volume foods may cause a bit more of a distended stomach because it's high volume. Like if I eat a big bowl of salad, like, yes, it's high volume, but it's low in calories. But after I eat that, my belly's going to stick out a bit. I'm not going to be able to suck it in after I just filled it up with a big bowl of salad, for example. or other high volume food, or had a big bowl of oatmeal. Or, I mean, you might have a bit of a distended stomach after you've eaten, which may, you look down and say, oh my God, I'm fat. My belly looks fat. But it's not necessarily fat. It's just your belly sticking out because it's full. So sometimes people get confused and thinking if their belly is a bit bloated, that they're fat. And it's not necessarily the case, because I mean, once that food is digested and processed, your stomach will be flat again. So you need to look at the bigger picture. And if you're actually measuring your body fat with an accurate body fat tester, whether it's a Skinful caliper or a DEXA scan or whatever you're using, but you have some sort of consistent body fat test, and the weight is going down and the body fat's going up, then you got to reevaluate your progress and your program that you're following, because something ain't right. Right? That means you're gaining fat and losing muscle, which is a complete opposite of what we want to do. We want to gain muscle, lose body fat. Raph is saying, get a new scale. Yeah, that's another thing to consider as well. Actually, now that you mentioned that, I am going to just address this, because this is actually a legitimate topic. With the weight scale, you know, if like assuming you got a bathroom scale, you should take multiple measurements and even try positioning the scale in different places. Because, for example, in my bathroom, I normally store the scale in the corner. And if I just stand on the scale when it's in the corner, it's not perfectly level. Like, I guess the way the floor angles up in the corner or something like that. So the scale's a little tiny bit off kilter. And if I stand on it when it's not perfectly level, and then I position the scale so that it is perfectly level, I'll probably get a different reading that might be varied by 2 or 3 pounds. So weigh yourself in different, like, make sure if you're using the scale, like, stand on it and weigh yourself, and then probably reposition the scale, stand on it and weigh yourself again. Reposition, stand on it and weigh yourself again. And just see, are all the weighings consistent? Another thing to consider, like, are you weighing yourself on hard floor, or are you weighing yourself on carpet? Or are you weighing yourself on a cushion floor or a hardwood floor or a tile floor? Because sometimes the floor surface may make a difference. So, like, I'm not saying get hung up on the accuracy, but what I am saying is you want to get hung up on the consistency. So if you're always weighing yourself, like, try and weigh yourself in the same place, ideally on a hard, solid floor that's level. And try and weigh yourself wearing the same clothes, the same type of environment each time. Like, prime example, like first thing in the morning, after you get up, before you eat or drink, and after you did your pee, and you're still wearing your underwear, before you're dressed, like, go weigh yourself then. And that's a very consistent, measurable number that you can kind of bank on. Because there's no point in trying to weigh yourself like, I weigh myself first thing in the morning in my underwear, and then I'm going to weigh myself later in the day fully dressed, because then you got the weight of your clothes to factor in there as well. Or say I'm going to weigh myself in the morning, or I'm going to weigh myself in the evening after you've eaten and drinking all day, because that's going to have an impact. Like, try and be as consistent as possible with your weigh-ins and use that to monitor your progress. So that's something I should mention. And I even had one of my coaching students say that he weighed himself, and he used to weigh himself wearing his slippers. And then one day he decided to weigh himself without his slippers on, and he got a different reading. And of course, we didn't know this until we were doing our coaching calls and actually talking about it, because I didn't assume that he was weighing himself with slippers. I assumed he was weighing himself with bare feet. But, you know, he walks around the house with his slippers on, and he just decided to stand on the scale with his slippers. And of course, that made a difference, right? I mean, obviously you have the weight of the slippers themselves, but the fact there's cushioning in there, that could be impacting the amount of force that's placed on the scale as well. So it could vary the numbers. Right. So there's all these things. You want to be as consistent as possible if you want to get accurate readings from the scale. And in my case, when I weigh myself, I usually jump on the scale 2 or 3 times in a row just to make sure that it's consistent, because it's a digital scale. And sometimes there might be some error. Like, more often than not, I would say 8 times out of 10, it's spot on. But every now and then I might weigh myself and get an abnormally high number or an abnormally low number. And then it takes a couple times afterwards just to get a consistent number. But that's something to mention. So if you just hop on the scale once and you get a weird number, it might not necessarily be that your weight has changed drastically. It could be that the scale just didn't register it properly. I know that was a long-winded question, but hopefully you got some value from it, because it's important, especially for people who are tracking their weight. All right, Andrew's saying, Lee, I have another quick question. There's no such thing as a quick question on this video chat. You know that. If the weight on the scale hasn't gone up in a week while lean bulking, should you immediately up the calories? No. Don't be so impatient when it comes to tracking your weight. Like if you're seeing the weight change day to day or fast, you're doing it wrong. It should be very slow and gradual. Now, it's nice when you can see progress week to week, but it's not always going to happen. I usually go for 2 weeks. Like if you are doing everything in your power that you feel is right, and you do it for 2 weeks consistently and you don't see any measurable progress, then you might want to reevaluate and see where you can optimize it, whether it's with your training, with your nutrition, or whatever it is that you're doing. But I usually give myself 2 weeks because you might just have, a bad week for whatever reason. And I've seen this before, like some of my coaching students, especially guys who are focusing on fat loss. And just for the record, most of the people that I coach are trying to lose fat while build muscle. So the ultimate goal is losing weight while building lean muscle. But I do have some guys who are, they don't care about weight loss because they're already naturally lean and they just want to fill out their frame with muscle. But either way, the same principle applies. Give yourself at least 2 weeks before you make any changes. And I remember a while back, one of my coaching students, Jeff Lombard, he was following the program. I mean, myself and Jeff, we did a YouTube video together. It's up on the Muscle After 40 success story playlist. But anyway, he was shared it with our private group, saying how like he was following his program, consistent with the workouts, consistent with the eating, like everything was on track, and he was stuck for 2 weeks in a row, stuck. And then out of the blue, like he weighed himself, and then there was like a 3 or 4 pound drop on the scale. Like it doesn't make sense. Like sometimes you might see stuck, and then it just jump. You see the progress happen, and then it might stay plateaued there, and then another jump. Right? It doesn't always happen linear. Right? In fact, if you're tracking your body weight and you're tracking your progress, it often looks like the stock market. It's up and down. It's up and down. It's up and down. Don't get frustrated by the fluctuations or even a plateau here and there. You want to look at the overall trend. Like where is it moving over to long term, and not getting hung up in the day-to-day fluctuations or the day-to-day, plateaus, if there are some. Look at the long-term trend. And as long as it's moving in the right direction over the long term, then what you're doing is working. All right. Andrew's saying, Lee Hayward is a legend. Come on. Who agrees with me? I appreciate it. Right? Thank you. I'm glad you're getting some benefit from it. If you are getting some benefit from it, give it a thumbs up. I do appreciate the support. I know it's only a small video chat and we don't have a big turnout for these, but if you do get benefit from it, I do appreciate some comments and support there. Lets YouTube know that people actually do enjoy them. All right, Lux has another question here. He says, I think for extreme obesity, the rate of reduction could and should be higher than 3 pounds a month. The more you reach your goal, the slower you go. What are your thoughts on this? Absolutely. You're totally right on that. It's basically like a percentage of your body weight. So like if somebody is really big and has a lot of weight to lose, like let's just say someone who's 400 pounds and they're more than 50% body fat, like you're morbidly obese. They could lose weight very quickly because they have so much excess weight to lose. So they will lose weight much faster. But if you have someone who's, 15% body fat trying to get to 10%, they're not going to lose weight as fast because their body has less excess fat to lose. Right? So, I mean, the leaner you get, the slower the process happens. But with that being said, the leaner you get, the more noticeable every pound of fat you will lose makes a difference and shows up in your physique. So like if you have someone who's got 10, like they're trying to lose the last 10 pounds and then they lose 5 pounds, like they will look totally different. Because I mean, if you only got 10 pounds of excess body fat and you lose 5, you're going to see the definition. And what's going to happen now is you're burning the fat that's in between the muscles. So like in your chest, for example, you're not just burning like a surface layer of fat. You're burning the fat that's in between and actually starting to reveal the lines and definition. You're burning the fat that's in between your abdominal muscles. It's going to start to reveal the outline of your abs, and same with the quads and everywhere else. Like you're going to start to burn the fat that's hiding and blurring the detail. So I mean, going from like lean to ripped is all about burning that fat that's in between the muscles, like the last 10 pounds, so to speak. Whereas if you have someone who's 400 pounds and he loses 5 pounds, Like nobody's going to see it because there's just so much fat there. If you just scrape 5 pounds off the surface, there's still tons of body fat on, well, not tons, but you know what I mean? There's still a lot of body fat underneath. So they need to lose a lot of weight before they get to that point where you can start to see the definition. But for someone who's already relatively lean by most people's standards, like say you're in the 15% and you're trying to get to 10%, like that 5% reduction of body fat will make a huge difference in how you look. Whereas someone who's 50% body fat, and if they go to 45% body fat, they're still going to look the same. They're just going to be a little smaller version of, you know, their old self. So it's like if they took their shirt off, like nobody's going to be able to see the definition or detail difference. I mean, they'll notice the number on the scale, which might be significant. But so yeah, it's you just need to factor in, and that's going to be unique to everybody. But the bigger you are, the faster you can lose the weight. But it's not really going to make it. It's not going to show until you get really lean and you start to see that definition showing through. We have Emma joining in. We have GE joining in. Any advice for injured rotator cuff? Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Yes, I have some videos up on YouTube showing some sample exercises that you can do for your rotator cuff. And if you just do a search, in fact, I can probably just see if I can bring it up there now. I'll find it for you. But if you just go to YouTube and do a search for like Lee Hayward rotator cuff, you should get some videos come through there. In fact, that's exactly what I'm going to do now. Lee Hayward rotator cuff. I just did this on YouTube. So there's an old video there that I did 13 years ago, right? There's one that I did not so long ago, just 3 years ago. That's probably the one that I would recommend. Here, I'm going to send you that link. Let me just open that up.
It's an important time.
Yes, it is an important time. Of course, YouTube ads are popping up here. I'm going to copy that into the video chat. So this one is for you, Mr. GE. Say rotator cuff video. Boom. So you can go check that out after the chat is over. Don't leave because I might cover something that you want to hear. So watch it after the chat is over. Okay, what else? We got Paul joining in. He says, I'm an electrician in a labor-intensive job. Would you work out before work or after and have food pre-workout if it's first thing in the morning? Cheers, Paul. All right, I can appreciate where you're coming from, Paul, and a lot of my coaching students are kind of in a similar situation, and it really depends on you, your schedule, your preferences. Like if you're an early morning person and you don't mind waking up before the sun and getting to the gym really early, then that would probably be the best time. And from a consistency point of view, early morning workouts do have an edge because one, you get it done, you get it out of the way, it's in the bank, the workout's finished, and regardless of how busy you get throughout the day, regardless of how tired you get throughout the day, your workout is done and you can't take that away from you, right? It's done. Right, you got, you know, choom choom. But if you wait till later in the day, then it's easy to get lazy. It's easy to get busy. It's easy to get it pushed off because let's just say you wait till after work later in the day, and then, you know, your wife calls you and says, hey, you got to go to the grocery store and you got to pick up this and you got to do that and you got to run these errands. And the next thing you know, right, the workout's getting pushed off later and later and later. And then you just had a hard day at work and you're extra tired and you're hungry and you just want to go home and eat and rest and like, I'll get back on track tomorrow, right? And then tomorrow rolls around and some other errands pops up and you got to work late and everything else. And then you get tired and blah, blah, blah. And you say, I'll get back on track on Monday. And it just keeps getting pushed off, pushed off, pushed off. So if you can do it first thing in the morning, from a consistency point of view, it may be advantageous. But that may not work with your schedule. Because I don't know, like maybe you got to be at work like in the wee hours of the morning. Like I was actually talking to one of my coaching students today. He got called into work at 3 a.m. So like if he has to be up at 3 a.m. to go to work, like what's he going to do? Like get up at 1 a.m. to go to the gym? Like, you know, like it's just not feasible, like the weird schedule and the hours. So in his case, he works out after work and he makes it work after work. And bottom line, it really doesn't matter when you work out from a performance point of view. Like if you work out in the morning or you work out in the afternoon or you work out in the evening, like as long as you work out, that's the most important thing, I mean, yes, there may be some slight edge to working out at this particular time or whatever, but the most important thing is that it gets done, regardless of when it gets done. So work out whenever it fits your schedule, but you want to be consistent. And that's the tricky thing, right? Is can you make it consistent? Can you make it fit for you? So some options that you may look into. I mean, like the three big times for people who work, your typical 9 to 5 job is obviously you work out first thing in the morning before work. If possible, you work out on your lunch hour, and that's a pretty good situation if you have access to that. If that's feasible to work into your schedule, because I know some people don't have a lunch hour, or they don't, they can't make that work. But if you can, that would be an ideal time, because a lot of times for people, lunch hour is just sitting around the break room shooting shit with your coworkers or scrolling through your phone on social media, and you're kind of just wasting time. So I mean, you could probably be more productive if you went into the gym and actually worked out on your lunch hour, even if it's only a short workout. Like a short workout in the gym is more productive than a short phone scrolling session. I mean, I know you're exercising your thumbs scrolling through social media, but it'd be more benefit to exercising your body in the gym, right? So a half-hour workout midday is better than no workout. Or the most popular one is to do it after work. And you look at gyms across the country, the busiest time is always that after work rush, right? Like from say 4 to 6 p.m. is kind of like the busy time when most people are going into the gym after work. So, I mean, if that's what works for you, then make that work. Or maybe it's an evening workout, right? You work out after dinner. Again, it doesn't matter when you get it done, as long as you get it done. So that's the most important thing. What else was there's another part to that question. Have food pre-workout if it's first thing in the morning. That's a personal preference. These days, I'm a big fan of eating before I train, right? Like I used to do a lot of fasted workouts, and you can get by with fasted workouts if you condition yourself for them. But now I prefer to eat before I train, and I find that I feel much better when I have some food in my system to run on versus trying to run on empty. So I mean, if possible, I would do that, and it doesn't have to be much. I mean, even like a protein shake and a piece of fruit. Like if you had that, that could be your pre-workout meal. It doesn't have to be like a big, bacon and eggs and pancakes and some big old feast. Like just something so that you're not running on empty, right? Protein shake and piece of fruit is ideal, because fruit's easy to digest, protein shake's easy to digest, and that will give you, something to give you the energy without sitting or heavy on your stomach or causing any digestive stress. So I mean, that's usually what I have if I'm need to have a quick pre-workout snack. Yeah, but again, hopefully that helps. I mean, like bottom line, you really need to just look at your overall situation, schedule, and what works best for you. And maybe you have to vary it. Like maybe some days you can do the early morning workouts, and then other days you can't. So, I mean, if you do have to alternate between mornings and evenings or whatever, as long as you get it done, that's the most important thing, right? That's the most important thing. And then think of always good enough, but good enough consistently, versus thinking like all or nothing perfection approach, right? Because very few people have a perfect situation. Most of us have a lot of things going wrong that are going to sort of throw monkey wrenches into our routine. So instead of stressing over, hey, I got to have the perfect program, the perfect this, the perfect that, just think, it just needs to be good enough and good enough consistently, and as long as you're doing that, you can still make progress. All right, I'm going to get ready and clue this up soon, because we've been going for over an hour, and I haven't been drinking much tea during my tea with Lee, so I still got half a cup of tea here. It's ice cold, iced tea, if you will. I've been doing too much talking and not enough tea drinking. Where else are we to? RC is saying love handles are the last to go. After they go, the core looks great, especially if the abs are developed, not necessarily ripped and shredded. Yeah, that's true for a lot of people, but it can vary depending on the individual, especially if you're looking at the differences between men and women. I can relate to this because my wife used to compete in bodybuilding and figure competitions, and very often we used to train together, do the same shows, right? I mean, like, obviously I would do the men's bodybuilding, she would do the female bodybuilding, right? Or female figure, whatever. But still, we'd train for the same competition. So we go through the whole contest prep together. And I used to notice in her physique, she would get super lean from the waist up. Like she could have six-pack abs and lean and defined and tight, and then still be soft and smooth in the lower body. Whereas I could be lean and defined in the legs and still be soft and smooth in the belly, right? So men and women have different physiques and have, just due to hormonal reasons and everything else, they store body fat differently. When women tend to store it more in the lower body, the hips and thighs, whereas men tend to store it right around the middle, the spare tire. But yeah, I can totally relate to that. In my case, it's love handles, lower belly, back fat, all that. Like the whole spare tire inner tube thing, right? That's always the last to go. All right, AA is saying, thanks for answering my question. You are welcome, my friend. Okay, what else we got there? Bozo the Clown is saying, people stop whining. I don't think anybody's whining, Bozo, but sure, we'll take your advice. JKS says, speaking of leaning, I'll never forget the mistake I made back in the day when I first decided to try working out. Day 1, bench press and curls. Day 2, bench press and curls. Day 3, bench press and curls. I made a video about that, right? I made a video about that. Well, I should share that. Actually, I am going to share it. Why not? I think I called it the stupid workout. It's an old video, like back in the early days of YouTube. Where was it? Maybe it's still there. I don't know. Jeez, it'd be buried down in the YouTube archives because it's definitely over a decade old. I don't know. Or was this? Oh, there it is. 10 years. I said a decade old, and it was 10 years ago. Hang on, I'm going to copy that in. If anybody wants to watch this, it's for it's not for advice. It's for shits and giggles. Well, actually, there is some advice to it as well, but it's still mostly for shits and giggles. I'm going to call it this. Where is this? Called the stupid workout. There we go. Watch after the video chat's over, which is going to be very soon, actually, because I'm getting ready to clue it up. All right, John, Craig. What? Okay, Craig saying, thanks for reminding me. It has to be a lifestyle, easy to get back into the all or nothing mindset. You're always full of great info. Keep up the great work. Appreciate it, Craig. Thank you, and glad you enjoy it. JE is saying, have you ever tried doing overhead press with a trap bar? I feel my side delts on fire with that variation. No, I have not. I have never tried doing an overhead press with the trap bar, but I could see that being certainly a unique movement for sure. Yeah, I may give it a go. We do have a trap bar at our local gym, so I might give it a shot and see how it goes. Paul saying cheers. Baby Boner saying you the man. Shobit, hey Shobit, how's it going? He says he's a former coaching student of mine. Says great to see you again. Wanted to get your feedback on rack pulls versus deadlifts. It's basically the same exercise. It's just the range of motion is different. So with a rack pull, basically a partial deadlift off the rack, you'll be able to lift heavier weight. It's not as great of a range of motion. You're basically putting your body in the strongest position. So mechanically, you're able to lift heavier. But there's advantages to both. It's not like one is right, wrong, good, or bad. It's just like it's just another deadlift variation. For the average person, I'd recommend just focusing on deadlifts off the floor. And for most people, just regular deadlifts off the floor will be plenty. Now, if you're really trying to push it and you're more advanced and you're kind of like trying to find advanced ways for progressive overload and to strengthen weak links and all that, you can incorporate partial rack pull deadlifts. Because again, it will overload your body and allow you to handle heavier weight than you can do with full range of motion, which is advantageous for some advanced people in those situations. But again, for the average gym goer, it's not really necessary unless you have some sort of lower back or mobility issues that prevent you from doing a full range of motion deadlift. So let's just say you find that when you do a full range of motion deadlift, either you don't have the strength or the mobility or the flexibility, and it causes some aches and pains, but you can do the top range of motion comfortably, then that would be an ideal situation to do a rack pull partial deadlift versus a full range off the floor deadlift. For example, like some taller lifters, especially if you're well over 6 feet tall, may find that a partial rack pull easier than a standard deadlift off the floor, because obviously someone who's taller, it's a lot further to pull it off the floor versus someone who's shorter. So it may be advantageous in that situation. But for the average person, I just do them off the floor. Like in my case, when I do deadlifts, I just do them off the floor. But back when I was in my powerlifting days and looking for every edge and advantage to spur on, strength and progressive overload, I did incorporate a lot of power rack work, power rack lockout bench presses and squats and deadlifts and overhead presses. Like I used to do a lot of work into partial range of the power rack just to strengthen the joints, tendons, and ligaments, and basically condition the body to handle heavier weight than it can normally lift. Because once you do heavy power rack work, which you could probably in some cases lift as much as 50% more than you could in your full range of motion, then when you go back to lifting your full range of motion weights, subconsciously it feels lighter and it helps to bridge that gap. But again, it depends on what you're training for. If you're just looking for overall health and fitness and lose the gut and get in shape, you don't really need to push it that hard. And in my case, at this stage of the game, I'm not pushing it to the limits anymore. So regular, just off the floor deadlifts is where I go. But it really depends on you and what you're trying to train for. So if you want any more feedback on it, feel free to reach out to me. We can have a chat, and I can give you some more specific situation or more specific advice based on your situation. But what I just covered here is just a general overview. All right, guys, I'm going to get ready to close it up. Like I say, I've been doing this for an hour and 10 minutes. I normally try to keep it to under an hour, but it rarely happens. But anyway, I'm going to get ready to close it up. Hopefully you found the chat helpful and you got some value from it. And if you did, please give that thumbs up button a smash. And, if you have any comments or feedback, post it in the comment section. And of course, if you want any help or have any questions that you want to elaborate on further, feel free to email me. My email address is in the description. It's leeh@leehayward.com. Or you can friend me up on Facebook and send me a message through there and we can chat that way. So I will clue it up. Have yourself a fantastic day. Happy Good Friday. Happy Easter and all the pleasantries of the season if you are celebrating that. And I will talk to you. Actually, I have an announcement to make. Next week, I'm going to be traveling, so there will be no video chat next week. All right, so heads up for the regulars. I will not be doing a live Q&A next week, but we'll resume in 2 weeks' time. Right, so we'll do it again in 2 weeks. So we'll have a week-long hiatus. So I'm going to be attending a fitness event in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm going to be heading down there, doing a fitness event. Meeting up with some other fitness professionals in the industry, and it's going to be actually the first time that I've traveled since the pandemic and the lockdown situation. So it'll be interesting to see how it all works out. But next week, looking forward to it. Finally traveling abroad, first time leaving the province in 2 years. So we'll be doing that. And I'm actually going to be meeting up with one of my personal coaching students as well, Jeff Samatero, who I've done videos and interviews and chatted with and helped him achieve an amazing transformation. In fact, I made a post today sharing some of Jeff's progress pictures up on my Facebook page. And we're going to be meeting up and doing some workout videos and filming some content for YouTube as well while we're down there. So that's stuff you can look forward to coming in the future. But in the meantime, I'm going to clue it up, guys. Have yourself a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you in 2 weeks. Take care. Over and out.